Posted by u/Deep Nebula 4950. My husband, 42M, and I, 36F, have a very solid relationship. We have been together for about 13 years and have no children, but we are very active in my nephew's, 4M, life. For some background, my husband has a child, 16F, Laura, with whom only my mother-in-law and, to some degree, father-in-law have a relationship within his nuclear family. The reason being, she was conceived when her mom poked small holes in the condoms. It was a whole drama, and my mother-in-law begged my husband to have a relationship with Laura, but he simply couldn't. He even had to get psychiatric help in order to cope with it. The mom admitted she did it so he would stay with her due to responsibility, but it did not work. He pays child support because the law mandates it, but nothing more. I didn't hear about this news from my husband but from my mother-in-law, and she emphasized that she liked me a lot and hoped I would be a good enough person to foster a relationship between my husband and Laura. I was flabbergasted and asked my now husband about it because my mother-in-law made it seem so different than the truth. He explained he was going to tell me before we moved in together, and to be fair, he kind of had already given me little bits of information here and there. He explained the whole situation and even told me I could go to therapy with him and see the psychiatric information if I wanted, but things were not as my mother-in-law said. His sister confirmed this as well and explained that this issue was the reason she was not as close to her parents anymore. Things went okayish for some time, and even the wedding went without issues. We all have several boundaries, and my mother-in-law more or less respects them, although she still has constant communication with Laura and her mom. We have had several cycles of very low contact with her. But things went into overdrive once my sister-in-law got pregnant with Mark. My mother-in-law started telling everybody it was not her first grandchild and all that cryptic stuff. My husband was so uncomfortable about it. She pushed for Laura to be involved in birthday parties, christenings, etc., but we all said no. She also invited both of them to her birthday party a couple of times, and we simply did not attend. Now, the new issue is that Laura has been so sad for not having her bio dad in her life, and my mother-in-law pressed my husband to do right by her. My husband said no and left immediately. I stayed while grabbing our stuff since I had brought food and told her it was not going to happen. According to my mother-in-law, Laura just wants to know my husband since he is her real dad, and despite being okay with her stepdad, it's not the same. She said she will give her our address and contact info because she is desperate for a connection. I told her I would call the police on all of them, and I said my sister-in-law will be very upset with her when she hears of this and to not be surprised to get less access to Mark. My mother-in-law called my husband cruel and me a bad person for encouraging his cruelty towards an innocent child. I told her I understand Laura is innocent, but she most likely would not be asking the same if it was a woman who conceived in the same circumstances. Am I wrong here? Edit. I thank you all for your opinions, even if you say we are monsters or cruel. I'm trying to keep up, but I think I need to clarify some things. I ask here not because I want to betray my husband, but because I stand by him no matter what. The condom did not break, and he was very committed to safe smashing. She assured him she was on the pill, but he wanted to be extra cautious by using condoms. Yes, she admitted to poking holes when he asked her if she would consider termination and, if not, if they could co-parent because he really didn't want a relationship anymore. She admitted to it, and my mother-in-law knows all of this. She is not in jail because my mother-in-law begged my husband not to report it, and he just wanted it all to be over. My father-in-law is like Switzerland now. At the beginning, he was up in arms until my sister-in-law asked him if he would feel the same if it happened to her. My mother-in-law is on thin ice with my sister-in-law since she introduced Mark to Laura on a zoo outing without consulting my sister-in-law first. My mother-in-law is not allowed alone time with Mark anymore. He has to pay child support until Laura is 18 or done with education in the country we live in. He already made sure to make a will, leaving her the minimum allowed by law, since you can't disinherit children in the country, but you can leave them the least amount. My mother-in-law is very distraught at this since he had me and Mark as the main beneficiaries. My husband does not want to meet Laura, give her a letter, etc. I'm not going to make him do that. I do believe my mother-in-law is pushing harder since Mark was born because my husband is amazing with him. We even took him on a trip recently, and we are very loving towards him. We also spend a bunch on him because we want to. We own our place, but it's all in my name for obvious reasons. I don't know if Laura knows, but I would never tell her because it is not my place, and despite everything, I think it is horrible to learn and worse from someone you don't even know. Update 1. I want to thank everybody who took the time to reply, even if it was against us. You gave us the push we needed to clear the situation. I showed my husband the post, and after spending a long time reading the comments, he decided enough was enough. Yesterday morning, he texted my sister-in-law and mother-in-law, telling them he would like to meet and have this over with. My mother-in-law said we could do it in the afternoon and that Laura was coming too. We all said okay. My sister-in-law and brother-in-law met us at the door because they didn't want to go in before us. It was really tense from the beginning. Laura tried to hug everybody, but we asked her not to. Then she tried to hug my husband, and he was slightly less polite and asked her to not touch him. My mother-in-law was very cheerful somehow, and my father-in-law was just offering everybody drinks and snacks. He was like living in his own reality. We sat down, and after what felt like the longest 5 silent minutes of my life, my husband turned to Laura and asked her if she could please leave him alone. Laura responded that he was her dad, and she would need his support when she goes to uni since she was planning to move to our city, and it was very expensive and hard to find a place. She said she knew he owned his own place and that he clearly had money to spare, so she was wondering if he would help her out. My husband said no, that he was already paying child support and would stop as soon as the law allows him to. She was upset but somehow kept going. She turned to me and said that at the end of the day, what is my husband's will go to her, since my mother-in-law explained the inheritance laws to her, and she wanted to be on good terms with me for when we need to decide what to do with the house, etc. I just told her not to worry because the house is in my name only, and there is already a will covering it all. My mother-in-law knew about the will but not the house situation. Laura was a bit taken aback and looked at my mother-in-law as if asking for help. She said that even if there is no future money, she thought my husband was unfair to her, that she used to think he simply didn't want to be a dad, but he is amazing with Mark, and we even take him on trips. My sister-in-law asked her point blank if she knew how she was conceived, and she does. Laura knows everything and says that while it was not the nicest way, her mom wanted her so badly that made it happen. She said my sister-in-law should understand because she is her cousin, and she would love a relationship with him. My sister-in-law was seething, and my brother-in-law told Laura he will literally call the cops if she tries to get near Mark. She started crying, saying that she wanted her family to love her and be as awesome as everybody is with Mark, and that it is not her fault. Her mom is not a bad person, she just wanted a family, and my husband denied them that. My husband said that it was the lying and the deception that cost the relationship, not him. If there was an honest mistake, things would have been different. He told her he will never be her dad and she needs therapy. He said that she could get a job instead of expecting him to pay for her life in the long term, and that he is not willing to have contact after today. My mother-in-law started begging both her kids not to go and maybe do family therapy. They both said they are going no contact with her, and my father-in-law is on thin ice. My mother-in-law is blocked everywhere. I guess this is it. No contact with my mother-in-law from all of us. My sister-in-law and husband seemed actually pretty happy with the decision. We had dinner together, and the topic was dropped after a couple of minutes, and we focused on other stuff. I'm sorry there is no Disney ending, but this is for the best, and I still support my husband's mental health above all. Edit. I think I would like to play a little devil's advocate regarding the money. When Mark was born, we started being very active in his life. We have yearly passes to the zoo, get him nice things, pick him up from daycare twice a week, took him to Disneyland Paris, etc. I believe my mother-in-law was showing her pictures, and that is why it came out like this, or at least it is my assumption of it. Her mom is not poor by any means, but she does have 2 other kids. Our city is very popular for student life, which makes it that much more expensive. My husband and I are not interested in having children of our own, we simply are ambivalent about the issue. I know it might have made my mother-in-law even more eager to have a relationship with Laura. We were giving her pocket money for some time, but we have decided to stop that as well and let her figure things out with her pension alone. I don't think we will have anything else to update in this case other than if Laura or my mother-in-law come around Mark, but I highly doubt this will happen. As much as we don't want a relationship with any of them, these are a teenager and a pensioner, not criminal masterminds. Update 2. I want to start by saying thank you again for the encouraging messages, and to those calling us all monsters, we are humans and flawed like everyone else. I thought the issue was over and done with, but it seems it is not. We had some weeks of bliss and chaos afterward, and we are all still recovering from it. Now to what happened to explode our lives again, and please keep in mind it brings me no joy. My nephew Mark turned 5 weeks after my last update. After many messages from my mother-in-law and father-in-law, my sister-in-law decided to let them attend but told my mother-in-law she was not to bother me or my husband. My mother-in-law didn't approach us once but kept staring at us, and we decided to ignore her. The issue was that I kept holding my bloated stomach and my husband kept being goofy about it. I am not pregnant, I have several intolerances to delicious foods that make me bloated, but I misbehave and eat them sometimes. My mother-in-law does not know about most of them since they developed with age, and we used to go up and down with low contact with her, so I guess she assumed I was pregnant. A week after Mark's birthday party is when everything went to hell. Laura came to my husband's office and made a scene. She was screaming at him about how she couldn't believe he was starting over without taking care of his first child and many other insults and accusations. She was throwing office supplies, crying, and causing a huge commotion, so the office manager called the police and an ambulance. The manager also called me. By the time I arrived, my husband was having a panic attack in his office, totally sure he was fired. I told him not to worry and that I would sort it out. I explained everything to everybody, from coworkers to police to EMTs. Laura was taken in for evaluation, and the coworkers took a long lunch so my husband could leave without having the awkward walkout. I took my husband home, and he was shaking and panicking. He said he felt unsafe, so I took him to the psychiatrist. The psychiatrist was able to calm him down, and we also had a session together days later where he opened up more about what the mom did to him. This has been very expensive but worth it for sure. Laura was not really in trouble since the office manager agreed to let it go for an apology and payment, but her mom was not having it. The moment she saw my husband at the station, she went ballistic. My husband couldn't handle it and had another panic attack. This woman is a doctor but doesn't seem to care. In the end, she paid the fine and restitution to the office and took Laura home. As a little background, I would like to share something I recently discovered about my husband's relationship with Laura's mom. Whatever I thought, it was way worse. I won't go into details, but during therapy, it came out that she even threatened him once with a knife. It's been really hard to keep it together lately, but it explains a lot of my husband's reactions. My sister-in-law was so done with my mother-in-law after this incident that she told her dad he either divorces her or she is cutting him off too. It's still a 50-50 decision since my sister-in-law is literally my father-in-law's favorite person, but he has been married to my mother-in-law for 44 years. My brother-in-law took my husband camping to help him have some fun and stay distracted. He has been mainly on sick leave since the incident. My sister-in-law, brother-in-law, husband, and I had a disagreement due to Laura's expenses. I suggested giving her a lump sum payment and requesting that she get therapy, but all of them said she should get nothing. I said I would be willing to pay for it, but after the new revelations about my husband's relationship with her mom, my sister-in-law is even more adamant against helping them more than we should. I do feel bad for Laura, I do, and I know the rest of them used to feel the same way. Now, there is no way to convince them to help her. The last nice thing my husband did was convincing his bosses not to charge Laura and paying for the monitors she broke. My husband goes to therapy once a week and is slowly recovering. And before it starts, yes, we know Laura is a victim of her mom, but does that give her the right to re-traumatize my husband? I still stand with my husband and will probably be called the worst of the worst, but some advice was very good the first few times, so that's why I came back.